He's going to say why he will be at the inauguration, why it's important to work together. That's coming up. I'll see you tomorrow night. Here's Chris.
Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. There is way too much quiet around this upcoming ban of one of the largest public spaces in America, TikTok. That's what social media is now. It's the equivalent of the parks and public spaces for speech. And TikTok is the second biggest, over 1.5 billion users worldwide, crushes Twitter. And it's gaining on Meta. 170 million users in America alone. That's half the country. I was moved to speak out to you tonight as someone who relies heavily on the freedom to speak out. I'm also moved by the youngest member of my family, who came at me for being quiet about younger generations having their playground taken from them. How does this happen in America? Carolina, almost 15, said to me. I thought you get to say what you want. I said, well, but you got to balance that with this concern that China may control what's on it and maybe spy on who's using it. She says, prove it. I can't. How can any of us allow the signature freedom of this democracy, the ability to choose how to exercise your right to free speech, to take the biggest hit we've seen in recent history without a really thorough debate? I can't even tell you why the law was passed, because there's been no proof of the threat that lawmakers who passed this law and set the 19th of January as a deadline say that they relied on. It's passed the House overwhelmingly, 350 to 58. The Senate, too, 86 to 11. I mean, this is a rare bipartisan agreement on something I don't even understand. Strange bedfellows in this, too. Can you remember another time that you had AOC and MTG, far left and far right, both fighting to support something? Here, TikTok. 1 second, you got the GOP saying platforms need to allow more speech. The next, they're voting overwhelmingly to ban an entire platform. The Supreme Court is supposed to rule tomorrow on the ban. You know, I went through the arguments. How could it be enough for the Supreme Court to say, well, national security interests, we believe China owns and controls this? They didn't prove that China owns or controls it. Will the Supreme Court really allow government to regulate free speech in as much as shutting down one of the biggest media platforms? Now, the first thing we need to expose in this is that Washington says it's about national security law as the operative premise, but it isn't. The operative premise and whether or not to do this is the First Amendment and whether it's being violated. How is this not government regulating speech? So if it is government regulating speech, then what is the basis? Now, any law that is going to regulate speech must pass the highest test for law, strict scrutiny. And within that standard, the places that deserve the most protection from regulation are public forums. How does TikTok now qualify as one? And if it does qualify, any regulation that was deemed worth doing this would have to be narrowly tailored to a vital national interest. Now, national security from a foreign inimical power, if that's what you define China as, is likely a vital interest. If you can show the threat from China on TikTok, you can't just say it. And even if they do articulate a vital national security interest to the Supreme Court's satisfaction, they also have to show that banning an entire platform, let alone one of the two most popular ones that half the country uses, qualifies as narrowly tailored. Foreign ownership. That's what I got from the Supreme Court argument. China owns it. Do they? TikTok is based in the U.S. The parent company is based in China. It's not owned by China. It's owned by a Chinese guy. It's a private company. Is foreign ownership enough to regulate social media? There's no law on it. Is there proof China's doing anything on the platform to content or to the users? These guys love to throw proof around, throw it about Trump, throw it about Biden, throw it about anything. Here, they're not throwing anything at us. Why? Have you seen anything shared? Is TikTok different than any other platform? They're all not strangers to toxic content. so it's about the ownership. But isn't the New York Post and Fox News and the Wall Street Journal owned all by Murdoch and co., who are all Australians? Oh, yeah, he's a citizen. It got rushed through by Reagan so that he could buy these things. So that was okay? That's okay. So why are they doing this? We know there was a lot of lobbying money, millions and millions, used by Meta, Mr. Zuckerberg, right around the same time of this bill being passed. Is that because TikTok is catching them after flying past Twitter? Elon Musk says TikTok shouldn't be banned. In fact, there are rumors he wants to buy it. Talk about something that might be a compromise to national security. Having one man owning 2 of the 3 largest forums of public chat would probably be an intense conversation. But we're not having that. More strange is that a lot of the lawmakers trying to ban TikTok were or are on it. So the biggest factor in delaying what's happening on the 19th may not be the Supreme Court. We'll see if they put it out tomorrow. It may be the incoming president. Trump is supposedly against the TikTok ban, even though he's always talking tough about doing tough things to China. So why is he not like his GOP followers on this? Well, I'm told Trump may have changed his mind on TikTok when he realized how much it helped his own campaign. And then, maybe the most important measure of whether he actually feels that way is what we just learned yesterday about who's going to the inauguration. The CEO of TikTok. And he's not just going, he's not going to just be mixed in the crowd, he's going to be featured on the stage. If the fact that there was no show of threat to the public, to the satisfaction at least of what this journalist can tell you, or that millions of people of all ages engage on this for personal, professional, and commercial reasons, or that they're about to fly into regulating speech in a more heavy-handed way than we've seen in a generation, if none of that matters, maybe this ban won't happen because Republicans will be going against Trump if they do. Of all the reasons not to do it, that one would be the saddest, but better than nothing. So let's discuss where are the merits on this and what's likely to happen. Trump's former White House communications director, Mr. Anthony Scaramucci, and journalist and political commentator Scotty Nell Hughes. Scotty, what's your take on this?
Well, I think you just took everything that I was going to say and you hit the nail on the head directly, Chris. You know, you can look at this at the micro, at just the TikTok issue itself, and you can look at the reason for the last 2 years. There's been millions poured in to getting this ban passed amongst the legislation by their biggest competitor, which was Meta. But then you can also look at it on the macro situation and realize there's more than 5,000 companies operating in the United States today that are owned by China. So are we going to start with this? And is this going to open up Pandora's box and a new foreign policy regarding economic standings in the United States with this administration? I think that's just something Donald Trump does not want to deal with.
Anthony, what am I missing?
Well, first of all, it's good to see Scotty. We used to do a lot of TV together. Listen, I agree with the free speech merits, and I agree with you and Scotty on those things. What I don't agree with is the data collection, the weapons-grade data gathering, and the algorithm that's inducting a lot of propaganda into the United States of America. And I would just say to both of you, the Chinese government would never allow this. They block they would block your show, as an example, in China if you were saying something negative about the Chinese Communist Party. And I think it's okay to have TikTok, but we would want TikTok to be in somebody else's ownership. And again, it doesn't have to be Elon Musk, but there's lots of people. My friend Stephen Mnuchin is bidding on TikTok. But remember, guys, the Chinese government does not want that. They have explicitly said that they will shut this down before they would sell it to somebody. And that should tell both of you that this is a national security risk. It should tell both of you that they're doing something with that algorithm and they're doing something with the propaganda pieces of TikTok that are dangerous to the United States. And I would say to both of you, last point, would Harry Truman or Dwight Eisenhower keep this open? They would not. They would focus on the national security interest. Sell it, no problem. Let's respect the free speech, but not have it in the hands of China.
Scotty?
Well, it's interesting he brings that up because the replacement app that is being pushed out, even Americans are talking about, is actually fully Chinese. It is the symbols Chinese, everything on it. You have to get a translator to go on this app. And there's no conversation about this happening from the politicians in D.C. today, which is why I think this either shows their disconnect from everyday Americans or their complete ignorance about the advancement that technology is going forward. And to Anthony's point, it is great to see you again, my friend. I think that it is such a popular tool, and there's been real evidence presented that the Chinese government is using it to figure out anything else besides viral TikTok, viral dances, and cookie recipes. But I think if they could present that evidence, if even our American intelligence has just basically said the Chinese are spying through us on this app, but they've never actually shown us evidence of what the motivation would be for that and exactly what the tools they're using for it. That, along with we don't even know a price. And I think the Chinese realize they're not going to sell, because why open that Pandora's box with this company when there's so many other options that they would be afraid could happen to them next?
Explain to me, Anthony, how does China control who gets it when this Joe guy owns it? I mean, he's Chinese, but just because it's a Chinese-based company, does that mean he can't sell it? And, to the point of what the Chinese are doing with this, TikTok's not allowed in China. They don't allow any of our social media platforms in there. They have their own version of TikTok, right? It's called Douyin or something like that. And I get that. I mean, I think social media is a problem. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of things are a problem. It doesn't mean you ban them. So how do we know they won't let it be sold?
Well, no, they've said that, Chris. They've said explicitly that they would shut it down before they would sell it. And
but how do they get to shut it down? And can they shut it down if the guy has based it now in America? Like, couldn't he just keep it going here?
They'll shut it down, Chris. I mean, one of the things that happens when you work for the American government is you get briefed on these different economic competitive issues and these economic issues that border on national security issues. And so I think it's really not a secret anymore that most of these businesses are tied to the Chinese Communist Party. And there is an intersection between the government and the business. The one thing Donald Trump is right about, so right about, frankly, that the Democrats took his idea, which is on the tariffs. The Chinese team up with their private companies and they dump goods and services into the West, lower prices, and kill our competition. And so what Scott Bessent said today is an example, which I totally agree with. We need protective and surgical tariffs to defend our country against that type of behavior. And I think we know, and people in government know, that there's an intersection between these businesses and the Chinese Communist Party. And again, I'm all for free speech. I'm all for the free press. I get excoriated in the press and don't mind it. But I don't want this in the hands of the Chinese government if we don't understand where they're doing with the data. We don't understand how they're manipulating young American minds. They, as you just pointed out, Chris, they wouldn't allow it in their country. Donald Trump is right about something. I like calling balls and strikes on your network. We have a competition with China, and we have to gear up and think in a way that protects American interests, American young people, and intersect all of that with our values like free speech. Let it get sold
then ban
somewhere.
Social media.
If it doesn't get sold,
social media for people under 16. But so ban social media like Australia did for people under 16, and send your kids to school for as many days a year as China does, and reinforce the disciplines of education that they do in their culture, instead of just banning something that is an aspect of our freedom. That's the part I don't get, Anthony. I don't get the remedy.
Can I ask you both a question? I know it's your show, but I want to ask you both a question.
Go ahead.
You were
Scotty,
in a national security briefing. Okay, so, Scotty, if you were in a national security briefing and they said to you, here is the evidence, here's the intersection of what they're doing, here is the danger to the United States of America, and you personally felt it was credible evidence, how would you act upon it?
Well, they haven't done that to the American people. And Anthony, I have to tell you, since you were in those meetings, you yourself have a very popular TikTok account that you see, that you use to sell your books, your products, your ideas. So
you Chinese plant.
Obviously didn't scare you enough. So then why should you take it away from those that actually use the accounts? You couple that with the millions of dollars that have been used to counter it.
Okay, but
Are you a Chinese spy, Anthony? Are you some kind of counterinsurgent agent? Is your code name Little Egg Roll?
Well, my code name would be Big. My code name would be Big Egg Roll.
Take it easy.
As you know, that would be my code name.
Take it easy.
Let's go back to my use of TikTok. So if it's available, I'm going to use it. If it's in the national security interest of the United States to make it not available, I'll find another venue to use. And so I think we have to look at this clinically, and we have to make that decision. By the way, Scotty, to your point about my TikTok account, I am arguing against my own economic and commercial interests, because you're right. That TikTok account has been very valuable, and it's been a lot of fun to use.
No, but we would all take a hit.
It's up against
We'd all take a hit entrepreneurially.
I'm willing to take down the account. Go ahead, little egg roll. It's your turn to talk, little egg roll.
No. I use that on you. You can't use it on me when I use it on you. You went to Harvard. You can come up with your own thing. Here's what I'm saying. We would all take the hit economically if it was in the national security interest. I get that. I would never suggest that otherwise, certainly about you, Anthony. You're one of the most beneficent people I know. But what I'm saying is, show me the threat. Show me that they're harvesting the data. The answer to your question is, what would I do if I were in the national security briefing? I'd say, Mr. President, you better get out there right now and tell them what they just told us so people understand why you're going to take a signature freedom from half of the country. So let's see what happens when the Supreme Court comes out. Let's see what Trump does, because I don't know why he's got the TikTok guy coming down and sitting next to him at the inauguration if he's going to ban the guy. So let's see what's going to happen.
Can I make one quick point in the fact that Joe Biden himself has a TikTok account, and he does have access to those security briefings. So obviously, if he hasn't been told, then there's not much to be scared of, and you have to look at the real motivation behind this.
That is true. It'd be the only time that we're all doing something that we say is too dangerous to national security. It's like we're all popping fentanyl and say, we got to ban this crap. Anthony, thank you very much for being with me. Little egg roll, you're always welcome here. Scotty Nell Hughes, always a pleasure.
I don't want a nickname.
I'm not going to tease you. I'm afraid of you. I'm not teasing you.
I'm afraid of you. I'm not doing it. We've known each other too long, guys.
4 minutes and 5 seconds. Thank you very much. Coming up, the families of the remaining hostages being held by Hamas, they went to bed last night thinking there was a deal between Israel and the terror group, at least for 33 of them, right? So what happened? The deal was not signed. Why? Did Hamas renege? Is Netanyahu not liking it? There's one president on Sunday, a different one on Monday. Is that part of the calculus of when this gets signed? I have an inside insight on it.
Why did you allow the Holocaust of our time to happen?
Protect this process while everybody from Amnesty International to the ICJ saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal.
I couldn't tell if that was Bernie Sanders or Larry David there. That was Secretary of State Antony Blinken getting heckled by anti-war protesters at his farewell press conference when questioned about the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal that fell through overnight. Yes, those were two apparently white guys arguing in favor of the Hamas terrorists that would certainly want both of them dead. The deal would have ultimately released dozens of hostages. Why didn't it happen? Why did Netanyahu delay a vote by his cabinet to approve the deal? Does that mean this is on him? Israel says it's because Hamas reneged on portions of the deal. Did they? Is there proof of that? But one report citing an Israeli official says that the delay in the vote may be because Netanyahu wants the exchange of hostages not to happen on Sunday when Biden would still be president, but instead on Monday when Trump is the new president, when Trump would then be happy about it, right? Let's bring in Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, and the chair of urban warfare studies at the Modern War Institute at West Point, John Spencer. Yeah. Ambassador John, first of all, thank you both very much. And do either of you believe that Mr. Netanyahu is considering the transition of the presidency in America and when to have this deal take place? I start with you first, Ambassador.
Absolutely not. We are committed to bring back the hostages. We completed the negotiations tonight. In the last few hours, Hamas tried to blackmail more than they received in the negotiations. From my understanding, those disputes were resolved. And tomorrow morning, Israel time, the Israeli cabinet will convene to discuss and to vote on the agreement. And Saturday night, after Shabbat in Israel, the government will meet, will discuss the agreement, and will vote on it. And I believe that there will be a majority in the government that will approve the agreement, and we will see some of the hostages coming back, hopefully late Sunday or Monday morning.
So, to your knowledge, there is no political motivation in deference to the American presidential transition?
Absolutely not. And I would say that, Chris, that we appreciate the fact that both President Biden and President Trump cooperated, worked together on this issue. And that's not a given, because usually when you have a new administration, they don't like to see the outgoing administration dealing with policy. But this was something unique, and we appreciate that the both of them put politics aside, worked together, and we are now in a place that we have an agreement. It's not a perfect one, but at least we will see 33 hostages coming back home. We will continue to fight until we will bring all of them back to Israel.
John, obviously everybody wants this to stop, okay? Why are so many people with your kind of expertise so unsure about whether this deal gets through phase 1, let alone phase 2 and phase 3?
Well, one is because of this, despite everybody saying this is a huge step towards peace, the one party who's not is the Hamas. The Hamas leader, right after signing this, went on TV and said he celebrates October 7th and can't wait to repeat it again. One of the reasons that we believe there's going to be a significant challenge going from phase 1 to 2 is because phase 2 is complete stop of the war, all IDF forces out of Gaza, and then a determination on who governs and provides security in Gaza before phase 3. All parties, Israel, the Trump administration, the Biden administration, say that Gaza will not be governed by Hamas. They will not have a role. But clearly, Hamas believes that they'll have a role. So this is a great deal to get hostages home. It's a deal with the devil, but it isn't a peace deal, that's for sure.
Ambassador, we hear a lot that within Israel, and as you know, certainly John does, but as you know, I'm fairly well connected in Israel with what's going on there and how the different political factions feel. There is almost unanimity when it comes to the idea that Hamas has to be destroyed for this to end. It cannot end if they are not destroyed. This deal does not seem to suggest their destruction. How do you understand that?
Well, first, I agree with you. I think it's not only in Israel. I think many Western democracies understand that if you want to have a future for the Palestinians in Gaza, you need somebody else to rule Gaza and not Hamas. So we will not allow Hamas to stay because it will be a threat to Israel. And after October 7th, we will not let them stay there. But I think also those who care about the future of the Palestinians should insist that Hamas will not stay there. And in the future negotiations, that will be our demand. We can speak about expelling them, we can speak about other options, but we will not allow Hamas to take over Gaza again, because we know what will be the end game. The end game will be another October 7th. We will not let it happen.
A quick follow on that, and then I'm coming to you, John. Ambassador, how does Bibi Netanyahu politically survive this when his own coalition is very, very, at best, uncomfortable with it, if not to say openly against it? Couldn't they just call for elections or a dissolution of the coalition, his own faction?
Well, it's a challenge. Israel is a vibrant democracy. You have demonstrations from all sides. One of the parties of the coalition announced today that they will not stay in the government. It will still have a majority in the parliament, but it is a sign that, it will be harder. It will be harder, but I think in the government, it will still have the support, and in the parliament, majority of Israelis understand that this deal is not perfect. I would even say it's a bad deal, but still there is no choice. We have to bring those people back home and then continue with our efforts to dismantle Hamas.
John, how do you sell not getting the people back, only getting 33, and all of these weeks that it takes when we know that they keep dying randomly? We know how many they had in the beginning. We know how many they are now, assuming they're even telling the truth. And it's very suspicious that they need so much time to organize and deliver this small number of hostages. How do you sell that part?
this is the deal with the devil and how much the Jewish people care about every individual. And there isn't moral equivalency here between Hamas. This isn't we just want peace and we want the war to end. There's a 9-month-old baby that was taken that still hasn't been returned. And Israel is willing to give hundreds of life-sentenced convicts over to Hamas to get that one, and we hope alive, baby. You don't sell it. There is no good deal here. There's only a deal that brings some home alive while you have a chance, understanding what it means to peace for even the Palestinian people. The greatest hurdle to any solution between Israel and Palestine is Hamas not being a part of the conversation. But this is the deal that they had to take, and what should be a huge sign that there isn't moral equivalency here. Israel is willing to do whatever it takes to bring whoever they can home, and then if they have to, continue to do that until they bring them all home. It is not a good deal, but it is the deal that they have to take.
Ambassador, last thing, and thank you both very much for joining me about this. Unfortunately, I don't think it's our last conversation about it. But Ambassador, what's your response to the suggestion that this deal is being made because America pressured Bibi Netanyahu that you have to make a deal now before the next president comes in because he doesn't want to have to deal with this as an open issue?
I don't think it's a question of pressure. I think the fact that both administrations, both presidents, put their leverage and pushed for the deal, it helped, and it put pressure mainly on Qatar and Egypt, who are the one who can apply more pressure on Hamas. It was very helpful, and we wanted a deal. Don't be mistaken. It was a desire of the government to see those hostages coming back home, and we are very excited about seeing those pictures, especially the girls, the babies. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll see them soon in Israel.
Ambassador, thank you very much for taking time to be here. John, as always, an invaluable resource. Thank you for the perspective, and let's pray for peace. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Up next, Nancy Pelosi, AOC and her squad, Michelle Obama, reportedly all not attending Trump's inauguration on Monday. Pelosi, I give a pass because of the injury. Michelle Obama, it's like, well, when was she an official? The other ones, I got to tell you, do you want the country to succeed or not? What can we expect from the Democrats with this new administration? Everybody knows who and what Trump is, but he's now also the president, a leader of the Democratic Party and a future face, I believe, of our national leadership is Maryland Governor Wes Moore. I want to put it to him. What does your party need to do now? Plus, he just led his state through a catastrophe. What does he make on what's happening in California on the political side, the level of scrutiny and the timing of it? Next. I'm not asking for Republicans and Democrats to become buddies, to hug each other. I know that they each understand that their relative advantage is tied to the destruction of the other. That's the problem with zero-sum binary politics. And yet, either you want to do things for the country or you don't. And this posture of, well, I have to stand on principle, that just means I'm going to oppose everything. And is that what we're headed for again? Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Michelle Obama. I give 2 out of 3 a pass. I'll be honest. Pelosi's injured and elderly. Michelle Obama's not an elected official. Okay, I've never heard of a first lady not going to a place is a big deal all of a sudden. And AOC matters because she represents this faction of the left that can be a pain in the ass if they want to. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't be if it's on principle, but if the principle is just to oppose Trump, then they are no better than what they say they oppose. So what should Democratic posture be toward this incoming administration for the good of the country and for the good of their own party? Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore is a star in his party. No more reason to say rising. The guy is a governor of a major state, and I think there is more to come for him, and he joins us now. Governor, best to you and the family. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's great to be with you and great to see you.
So I get this phone call. Governor Moore wants to come on to talk about his budget. What is so great about the state of Maryland's budget that you just passed that it warrants national attention on the flagship NewsNation show?
Well, you know, what's great about it is that in these conditions and in these times, with a Democratic governor, we are about to give 2/3 of the people of the state of Maryland a tax cut. That we're about to say that 82% of the people of the state of Maryland are about to either get a tax cut or have no impact at all. That in the state of Maryland, we're about to cut the corporate tax rate. That we're about to eliminate the inheritance tax. And for the third year in a row, we are going to have a budget that does not include any increases in sales tax, any increases in property taxes, and actually cuts $2 billion from our state's budget. This is a deeply fiscally responsible budget that actually focuses on growth. And this is the point that I'm so excited about, Chris, is that, you know, this is the first time in a long time that Maryland actually has a growth agenda, where we are actually going to invest in industries that Maryland has a unique chance to lead in, and making sure we're actually putting capital behind it. Because one of the biggest problems we had in our economy is that during the 7 years before I became governor, our budgets increased by 70%, but our GDP was at 3%. So we were growing in terms of our budgets, but we weren't growing in terms of our economy. This is the moment when we move differently. This is the moment when Maryland can actually grow economically, and making sure that we're putting more money back in the pockets of our working families. And so we're really excited about our ability to be able to get this done, because I think once again, Maryland is going to lead the charge on this.
How'd you do it?
By being able to work with people, not just across the aisle, but I mean, to put this plan together, we literally work with everyone from the Fair Funding Coalition to the Chamber of Commerce. And if you look at the people who have endorsed our tax plan, I mean, our tax plan has been endorsed by progressive tax experts and foundations, and also the Tax Foundation, which is a conservative organization, has said this is one of the most innovative tax plans that we've seen, especially from a blue state. And so I think, and I think about it in this way. I've introduced 26 bills since I've been the governor of the state of Maryland. We've not just gone 26 for 26, we've gone 26 for 26 bipartisan, with both Democrat and Republican support on every single bill that I have introduced since I've been the governor of the state of Maryland. In Maryland, we're showing, because we move together, we are moving differently, but because we're moving differently, we're actually moving faster than everyone else in the country.
What is the lesson as we head into this new administration? And we both know your party is struggling with what its posture is supposed to be. Are we supposed to double down on this is a bad guy who is about bad things, and we're staying there because we know we're right and the people who voted for him have to learn how to change their minds? Or is it time for a different posture and leaning into the idea that you missed the mood of the country?
Yeah. You know who I'm doubling down on? The people of Maryland. There are 6.5 million people who I represent. And I know that a good portion of them voted for Donald Trump, and a good portion did not vote for Donald Trump. But the thing that I want all of them to know is this: the one common denominator that they all have is they're Marylanders. And I'm their governor. And I'm going to defend them. And I'm going to protect them. And I'm going to make sure that we are investing in their future and we are protecting their future. And so I've been very clear. I don't play political games. I don't play partisan games. That's not my background. My background is I was in the business world, and I'm an Army guy. And I know that, when we said leave no one behind, we meant that. And we didn't ask about political affiliations. And so I'm willing to work with anybody who is willing to work together to be able to protect the interests of the people of Maryland, to make sure that we're investing in their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations. And I'm willing to push back on anybody who, when I feel like those hopes and those dreams are being attacked. And so in this moment, I just think it's really important for everyone to remember who it is that you represent and what it is that you are trying to get done. And for me, my default will always fall on, I'm representing the people of my state, that I'm not the leader of the resistance. I'm the governor of Maryland, and I'm going to fight for the people of my state.
So do you think the brothers and sisters in Congress need to hear that message on the Democratic side, that they got to deliver for constituents, and the mandate is not to just oppose?
Well, I actually don't think that it's going to be my job or any of our jobs to lecture to anybody about how they should perform nor behave. I think we all need to do, as I learned in the military, just lead by example. Lead by example and show people exactly what your morals are, what your values are, what you will fight for, and frankly, what you'll produce. And I think about it in this way, Chris, where, I think about what's happened in the state of Maryland since I've been the governor, where we've been able to work together to make historic progress. When I was first inaugurated, we were 43rd in the country in unemployment. Now, we are going on 14 straight months of amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country. When I was first inaugurated, Maryland had gone over an 8-year period, had seen the homicide rate nearly double. Baltimore City had gone 8 straight years with 300 plus homicides. Now, 2 years later, Maryland has amongst the most precipitous drops in violent crime in the entire country. And so we're showing what exactly can happen when we choose to work together. And I think another classic example is what happened during the Key Bridge. The reason we were able to, when we had this tragic collapse of the Key Bridge, 13% of my state's economy was shut down instantaneously. We lost 6 Marylanders. But the reason we were able to recover so quickly is because we stood united. The reason we were able to recover so quickly is because we stood together with a unified plan. And that's why we were able to reopen the channel in record speed. We were able to bring closure and comfort to the families of those victims who we lost. And yes, we were able to get 100% cost share with a bipartisan support, both Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill, to make sure that we can get the Key Bridge built on time and on budget.
It'll be interesting to see how you interact with this administration, and we'll be watching. I appreciate you coming on to show that government can still work for the people. I only have one beef. I know you invited Stephen A. Smith to a football game. I know you did. Like, I don't like football, I don't like football. But now I know. You made your choice. You chose him.
Listen,
just don't think I didn't see it.
We're going to bring you down to the Super Bowl parade.
No.
We'll bring you to the Super Bowl parade. We'll bring you to the Super Bowl parade.
You're going to lose to the Bills this weekend. So how's that going to happen? I'll bet you lunch on it. I don't know why you're laughing.
No, sir. Lamar's going to win his third MVP, too.
Listen, I'm going to send you a text after this interview. I'll bet you whatever you want. You're going to lose this weekend.
Sounds
Smile
good.
Now, Gov. Smile now. Smile now. Thank you for being with me, Governor
Sounds
Westmore.
good.
Be well. Be well. Look how happy he is. Look how confident. Good. I'm glad you're confident. God bless, Governor. Go Bills. 3 minutes, 45 seconds coming up. Government can work. You got to put the egos aside and be obsessed with delivering. When you do that, progress can be made. Thousands of people have been left homeless. The new story in LA as the fires die down is the increase in difficulty in recovering. A big issue? Rent. Where do these people find places to live now? Increases of more than 100%. How? Didn't the state say no gouging? What's going on? I've got the expert of experts on LA real estate. $1 million listings. Josh Altman next. So if you care about what's happening in California, you got to look forward because you have all these people displaced. Where are they going to go? All right. Now, forget about the political BS. Oh, go to Florida, go to a red state. No, they're going to want to stay where they live. The question is, can they? You're going to have to rent immediately, right? You have to deal with your insurance and the money and get the money together. Can you do it? Realtors and homeowner advocates are reporting a California law that bans rental increases by more than 10% during a state of emergency is being violated in a big way. Property owners, managers, in some cases, reportedly going up more than 100%. Some short-term renters are finding themselves on waiting lists and in bidding wars and being asked to provide a year's worth of rent up front. How are they getting away with this? Is it really happening? What should be done? Talk about a pro's pro. LA real estate mogul, star of $1 million listing LA, the owner of the real estate company, the Altman brothers, Josh Altman. Josh, thanks for being on.
Chris, thanks for having me. I'm getting off of the craziest week of my 20-year career. The phone has not stopped ringing, not in a good way, not the type of business you want to be doing. We have over 1,500 new renters just locally. I'm about 10 minutes away from the Palisades. We got a lot of people in this new market. There's an entire off-market business that's being done right now. No one can find a rental. It's insane. People are trying to make deals with empty houses that were supposed to be for sale. We're in uncharted waters here. Ordinances are changing by the hour, which is good because people are trying to figure out a way to speed the build process to get these people back to normal life. But also at the same time, even somebody like me, I'm learning as we go. If you asked me 2 weeks ago about price gouging in real estate, I wouldn't even know what you were talking about. And now it's a very big deal here. I'm actually involved in a group of realtors that have this list that people are putting together. There's over 2,000 units just on this list of people who had different prices late December, and now they are higher in January. That's a big issue for multiple different reasons, and it's very obvious. This is not like you can hide this. This is public record. People can look what it was on for a couple weeks ago, and it's a big problem that we're dealing with, and it's really a race to who can get to these leases first and make a deal. And we don't even know what's going to happen at the end of the day.
Well, I get the price pressure of supply and demand in this situation. That was going to happen. But the state made the 10% rule. How are they getting around the 10% rule?
Well, we're going to see what the punishment is, right? Because we don't even know what that is yet. People who have learned about it, like us, for instance, we've had meetings with our brokerage. We can't even take those listings if that's the case. We don't want to be anywhere near them because you're going to get dragged into them on a real estate agent front as well. So it'll be interesting to see. What I'm hearing is if you were on for $10,000 a month, for example, and you raised it to $20,000 a month, that tenant, once they're in that house, I would be very surprised if they're not able to get the entire difference of that $10,000 back if they go out and hire an attorney. But there's gonna be so much of it. You have to realize we signed $250 million worth of listings in the past week. We usually do that in a month and a half. There's more properties flooding the market, both for sale and for lease. I have 50 friends just personally with houses that I've sold that have lost their houses completely, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to get their family to some type of normalcy. You can't live in a hotel for that long. You got to get back to reality a little bit. I will also tell you, Chris, I walked the Palisades. I walked Malibu. For people watching around the world and seeing this, I'm telling you, it is 100 times worse when you walk those areas. It gives you a stomach ache. You can't even wrap your head around it. Neighborhoods gone. Think about the Palisades. This was that all-American neighborhood. Families, children running up and down the street. It was like what you see in movies. Gone. But I will tell you what's interesting, Chris. I said when this first happened, maybe 35 to 40% of the people won't go back to the Palisades. I now up my number to 65 to 70% of the people who lived in the Palisades won't go back there. What are they going to do? They're going to be the house that's finished and then live amongst 100 other houses being developed. The kids that are 5 years old, they're going to be 10 years old by the time it's done. They're not going to go to the same school.
Yeah. Listen, Brother Altman, I appreciate you. Thank you for telling us what's happening. Let's stay in touch. And as you go through it and you see who's doing it right and who's doing wrong and why, let me know and I'll get the word out. Josh, all the best to you.
Chris, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll speak again soon. We'll be right back.